Today I'm going to share 4 tips for breaking bad habits for good, so make sure you stay tuned. Founder of 365 Plus, and one of the questions I get all the time is, how do I get rid of bad habits? So it's a couple of things that you need to think about, and I've got 4 tips for you that you can do right away to get rid of them for good. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out what the trigger is for that habit. Why are you actually doing that bad habit? Is it like when you're stressed, your initial thing is to come home from work and sit in front of the TV on the lounge and put the TV on? Is that your bad habit? You need to know what it is, what your trigger is, what's actually making you start that bad habit and why you're doing that. Because if you can decouple and think about what's the trigger and why you're doing it, 2 things can happen. Number 1, with the trigger, you can try and get rid of that trigger. You can try and, if your trigger is sitting on the couch when you get home, and then that makes you turn the TV on and that makes you get sucked into the TV, then what you can do is make sure as soon as you get home, you don't sit on the couch, because the couch is your trigger. So you have to really think about, what's that trigger and why do you do it? You do it because you're stressed. So what can you do before you get home, like in the car on the drive home or whatever else, to decompress so that when you get home, you're not in that crazy stress state? So there's kind of got to look at that trigger, that why, to make sure that you overcome that in the first place. The second thing you need to do, once you've figured out what your trigger is, what your why is, the second thing you need to do is you need to think about what good habit can you replace it with. Because too often, you're going to have that trigger anyway. You're going to get home from work and you're going to feel a little bit uptight, tense, whatever it is, and you've tried to shake it off in the car, but maybe you haven't quite got there yet. So what are you going to do? Instead of going on the couch, let's replace it with a good habit. Let's make it that you're going to go for a walk. So as soon as you walk through the door and you get home, chuck on your yoga pants, put your hair in a messy bun, and just go for a little walk around the block and see how that makes you feel. Or maybe it is that you're gonna spend 5 minutes with your kids talking to them instead of sitting on the couch. Or maybe it's you're gonna get straight into cooking dinner. Whatever it is, you need to think about, you already kind of have this event that's happening, this trigger, and you're gonna do things to minimize that trigger, but what can you replace it with that's a good habit? Because if you fill that time with something else good, then you're gonna not have the time to do the bad habit. The next thing, the third thing that you need to do is, if you have a bad habit, you need to make it really hard to do. So what do you mean by that? How do I make my bad habit hard to do? So let's talk about a couple of different things you could do. So one is crazy, but you could take the batteries out of the remote control for the TV and hide them. So you can't turn the TV on. It's a really big effort for you to go find where you hid the batteries, to go put the batteries back in, to go watch the TV. So it's harder for you to go and sit down, plunk yourself in front of the TV because you try to switch it on and nothing's happening. Oh, that's right, I hid the batteries. Well, now that I'm up anyway, I might as well go for a walk. Or I might as well grab something healthy out of the fridge to cook. Whatever, you've got to make it really hard. Another great example I have is one bad habit that people always have is hitting snooze in the morning. Instead of just getting up and get out of bed, it's snooze, 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 snooze. So something that I always recommend you do is if you use your mobile phone as your alarm or your alarm clock, and put it on the other side of the room, so you have to physically get out of bed to stop it. Because once you're already out of bed, you're who could be bothered getting back into bed? I'm already up. But that's a way, and that's an example of how you've made that bad habit of snoozing really hard. So you have to figure out how you can make that habit really hard, and then the good habit that you've replaced it with, you've got to figure out how you make that easy. So maybe you put your yoga pants on the back of the couch so that you can put it on. Or another great thing, if you want to write 3 things you're grateful for every night, put your gratitude journal on top of the bathroom sink where you brush your teeth, so that it's in your way, so you have to quickly write down the 3 things you're grateful for before you can brush your teeth. So it's how do you make it easier? How do you make sure you can't forget to do things? The good things you make easier, the bad things you make harder. So we've got first of all, you're going to figure out your trigger and your why. Then you're going to figure out what the good habit is that you can replace it with. And then you're going to make that good habit really easy and the bad habit really hard. And then if all else fails, we've got one more that you can do, and this one's a little bit crazy. But the reason that you have habits is in your brain, you've got like all these little like super highways, and I like to call them like little trenches, and you'll understand why. Because every time you do something, it's like it digs the trench a little bit deeper. So, you do it once and it's like a little scratch on the surface. You do it twice, a bit deeper. And by the time you've done it 100 times, you've got this like really deep trench that you've dug. And then that becomes a habit because it's like this super highway in your brain. It's like easy. Your brain knows how to do it. It's like brushing your teeth. It happens on autopilot. But you've got to stop that from happening, right? Like we want to fill this trench in because it's a bad habit. We don't want to have that trench open, that highway open anymore. We want to shut it down. So you've got to do something to change to shut it down. You've got to do something to scramble your brain and make your brain go, whoa, 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 this isn't right. So every time you catch yourself doing your bad habit, you need to do something crazy. And I mean super crazy. Like if your bad habit is that, I don't know, let's take smoking. Like I've never smoked, so maybe this is a bad example, but let's take smoking. And let's say your bad habit is that you're smoking and you've gone through, you've figured out what your trigger is, you've tried to find a good habit to replace it with, you've made smoking more difficult by hiding your cigarettes, and you've made your new habit easier by, if your new habit's drinking water, you've got your water jug right next to you, but then you still catch yourself having a cigarette. So every time you have the cigarette, you need to do something like, ah! And like fully like do something super crazy. Like that just scared you, right? That was pretty scary, but you've got to do something that scares yourself. That's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then put it down. Because you need to scramble that pathway. You need to start shutting that pathway down and start to make the pathway for the good habits better. So, crazy, but it works. You've just got to do something super crazy to scramble your brain every time that bad habit comes up, and it'll be really, really powerful for you. So to recap, 4 things. First one is to actually figure out what the trigger is and why you have that bad habit in the first place. Second thing is to replace it with a good habit. Third thing is to make the good habit easier to do and the bad habit harder to do. And the final thing is to do your crazy scramble if you catch yourself doing that bad habit. So if you do these 4 things, I'm sure your bad habit will be put to bed pretty soon, and you'll have this amazing new habit that you can put into your life and really move forward in a really happy, positive way. So live vivaciously.